Hello, I'm Michael LeMay in Aspie, and I'm going to show some facts and debunk some myths about autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. But before we can get to that, I'd like to say a few things. First off, I've tried to do this via webcam, but YouTube couldn't read it for some reason, and other sites are too shady or didn't read the webcam either. Some of you may have observed some abnormal, quirky, or different behavior in me. Maybe we entered a conversation and I didn't make eye contact as much as I should have. Maybe I stared at the floor, shifted nervously in my seat, or displayed some nervous habits such as popping my fingers, stretching, or putting my hand inside my shirt like so. Maybe you've seen me pace back and forth, mouthing words, or you may have come to the house and I retreated to my bedroom. When I was younger, I even developed a lying habit and may have said some stupid, abnormal, or maybe even inappropriate things, though I don't know how much of that was the disorder or simply age-related, a normal part of growing up. Also, I'm reading this off of notebook or board pad, and I have too much monotone to my voice, so it may come off robotic, but I am trying to be as reflective and articulate as possible. In this video I will state a fact and then explain it, trying not to over-explain it. I also might use terminology such as Aspie to classify Asperger's syndrome and high-functioning autism. Asperger's and high-functioning autism are not exactly the same thing, but it's the same clinical diagnosis. Auti, to classify individuals with low functioning, also known as classic or Kanner's autism. Neurotypical, or NT, to classify normal-brained people. And autistics, to describe everyone with autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. Now on to the facts. Now remember, I can't speak for all autistics. Some of them may have been through extensive behavioral therapy and have learned to cope with these symptoms through time and effort. Fact number 1. Autistics ordinarily don't make eye contact. One of my personal biggest issues, or this is one of my personal biggest issues, and is a dead giveaway. It's caused by the amygdala not being activated when I, or other autistics, look someone in the eyes. There are a couple of other theories which I will post in the resources, which are located in the description on YouTube and at the end of the post on Facebook. At the end of making of the video, but the amygdala theory has been proven. This can cause us to look shady, paranoid, or like we don't care about what the person is talking about. I assure you that none of this, well, maybe paranoid, is the case. Autistics pace back and forth. Aspies and Autis have different reasons for pacing, but we both tend to do it a lot. I, for example, pace as a form of mental stimming. We will get to that later. For about 2 to 4 hours a day, sometimes even more. For me, pacing is a way of stimulating my thought process. If you look at Beethoven or Thomas Jefferson, they also paced and mumbled to themselves or mouthed words. Both of these men, along with Albert Einstein, Madame Curie, Abraham Lincoln, and the recently deceased Robin Williams, have all been suspected to have the disorder. For Autis, pacing is normally a form of mental stimming because of the sensitivity of somatosensory nerves. We will get to that later. Autistics feel the need to stim or stimulate those nerves. They also pace when they get overexcited. High-functioning Autis and Aspies mentally stim. Now this isn't an official term yet, but it needs to be discussed. I thought I coined the term mental stimming, but I have read some forums where other Aspies have reported and even used the term mental stimming to describe their thought process. Whereas low-functioning Auties physically stim, such as rocking or hand-wringing, their somatosensory nerve cells. Whereas low-functioning Auties physically stim their somatosensory nerve cells through rocking or hand-wringing, high-functioning Auties and Aspies stim mentally. When we hear or read something or listen to music, such as a TV show or movie, we start playing it over and over, thinking about it from all different angles. This goes on our whole lives, every day, all day. We wish we could select when this happens. The ability to turn it on and off would be a gift from God, but most of us can't. When something enters our thought process, which sometimes is referred to as another world, it's not just a thought, but it's a movie. That's why Aspies and Auties have such a hard time concentrating on things. It's like living in two worlds at once, the physical world and a mental world. And living more in one world takes away concentration from the other. We don't like when this process is interrupted. In fact, in some of us, it can cause a neurological meltdown. More on that in the next fact. Autistics have meltdowns. Everybody, even neurotypical people, have meltdowns. It just takes a lot less and sometimes a lot more for high and low functioning Auties. Sometimes it can seem like an autistic can take crap from NTs all day, but it won't even faze them. But then we can't open a jar of pickles on the first try, and we go ballistic. There are several neurological reasons for this phenomenon, but that you can read in the resources. These meltdowns are sad and scary for the autistic and the person watching. We lose our sense of self and we only have sense of ownership. Imagine you're just learning to type. At first you have to remember press Y, press Q, press G. But eventually this process becomes automatic and you don't think about it. Think about what you're pressing as much as what you're typing about. This also applies to driving. Take a left turn here, turn on the left blinker, wait for the red light to turn green, then turn the wheel. As a new driver, you probably consciously thought about these things, but hopefully after driving longer than 10, 20, or 30 years, these things become automatic. Meltdowns are always automatic. We obviously don't think about hitting things, cussing, or crying, but it happens anyway. This is the hardest thing with high or low functioning Auties, including Aspies. Although you can learn to control it to an extent, many of us can't. Autistics have Sensorimotor Disorder. This means that our somatosensory and motor neurons are not as well connected as NTs, meaning that when something is hot, it's really hot. When something is cold, it's really cold. When something feels good or soft, it feels really good or soft. However, pain reception of nociceptors seem to be less sensitive than in NTs. This means that autistics are more sensitive to auditory, hearing stimuli and non-painful and thermal or hot or cold stimuli, but not to painful stimuli such as physical injury. That is the somatosensory part of it. The motor is different. Lack of coordination, balance, and depth perception is a result of weaker connections of motor neurons. Well, I shouldn't really say lack of, but less of. Aspies and high-functioning Auties are often referred to as little professors. This is the term Hans Aspergers used to describe the 11 boys that were in his care. Hans Asperger's was a pediatric or child psychiatrist. He discovered Asperger's syndrome in 1944, though it was Lorna Wing who coined the term Asperger's syndrome. Hans called these kids little professors for their ability to talk very intelligently, obsessively, and articulately about their favorite and often very strange and complex topic. Today, this methodical, overly formal way of talking is called pseudo-speak. Some autistics are child prodigies, but they are the exception and not the rule. In fact, most of the child prodigies in history, including Ludwig von Beethoven, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and Sir Isaac Newton, were very possibly autistic. I'm not sure what the statistic is, but a very low number of autistics are child prodigies, but an even fewer number of child prodigies are neurotypical. This is largely due to the autistic attention to detail, which is the reason why autistics are often fascinated with science, which tends to focus on minute details. Fact number 8. Bullying and abuse runs rampant in the autistic community. Children with autism are emotionally, physically, verbally, and sometimes even sexually abused by peers and sometimes their own parents or guardians. Now, I'm not going to tell you about my own traumatic experiences, although I can definitely jerk a few tears with them, but I'm not trying to tear jerk you with this story, but I think people need to hear it. A middle school boy who would only go by his middle name in the media, which just happens to be Michael, was abused by 2 girls. One of them he claimed to be his girlfriend, though she didn't claim him. He was walking onto a frozen lake to get a ball that they were playing with. He fell into the ice. He was crying and begging for help. They laughed and took a video of him. Pleading them for assistance, he almost drowned, but was able to pull himself back up. On the ride home from the lake, they didn't want to get their new car's back seat wet, so they had him ride in the trunk. On another occasion, one of the girls pulled him by his hair across the yard, kicked him in the groin, and put a knife to his throat. On another occasion, they coerced him into having sexual relations with the family pet, a dog, filmed it, and showed his friends and classmates around school. This is just one story of autistic abuse from NTs, and not nearly the only one by far, but I don't want to provoke too much sympathy with these facts. Fact number 9. Autism is a part of you. Autism, high or low functioning, is a part of you, like having blue eyes or brown hair. And like having blue eyes and brown hair, some people are proud of it, some people aren't, and most of us are ashamed and proud of it at different times throughout our lives. Overall, I'm proud to be an Aspie, and it's a shame when I'm not allowed to talk about it openly outside the house. It's a huge part of my life. It's a curse. It's a blessing. It makes me unique. Sometimes it puts me down. Other times it builds me up. It's a mixed bag for sure. But overall, I'd rather be an Aspie than an NT. I can't say the same for my less fortunate brethren, but I'm proud of my eccentric uniqueness. Fact number 10. Autism is a lifelong disability. Sure, there have been claims of people that have outgrown it, but most of the time they have outgrown some of the symptoms, not the disorganization of their neural circuitry. Some have even claimed programs or religious ceremonies that have freed them from autism, but I have never believed a word of it. Autism spectrum disorder is a lifelong lack of strong neural circuitry in some regions of the brain and overly strong circuitry in others. You can change a lot of things about yourself, but your brain circuitry doesn't change, at least not unless you're talking about your neocortex. which is a neuroscience joke. Now for some of the myths of autism. Some of you may have forgotten the terminology here. Aspie refers to people like me, high-functioning autistics, and people with Asperger's syndrome. Autis, when used by itself, refers to low-functioning autistics, also known as people with classic or Kanner's autism. Just autism and autistics refers to all people with autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, and NT refers to neurotypicals, or normal-brained people who do not have a neurological disability. Autism myth number 1. Autism is caused by refrigerator mothers. Leo Kanner, who first discovered autism in 1943 at Johns Hopkins Hospital, had a theory that autism is caused by cold, unemotionally detached, and uncaring mothers. This is due to the selectiveness of his case studies, which were children of middle to high-class intellectually gifted parents. Intellectual people often detach themselves from emotion to look at something objectively. Sometimes this even includes their children. Autism myth number 2. Autism is caused by the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination. The exact cause of autism is unknown, but the most likely cause of autism is genetics. I won't go into the specific genes. Some of them aren't known yet, but I highly suggest you do your own research by checking out my resources. The MMR vaccine scare caused children to become infected with these viruses. You may be wondering, like I was, what are measles, mumps, and rubella? Measles, mumps, and rubella are viral diseases. All of them have the potential to be very serious. Measles is characterized by fever, coughing, running nose, conjunctivitis, or pink eye, and a red pinpoint rash that starts on the face and spreads to the rest of the body. If the measles virus infects the lungs, it can cause pneumonia. Some other children infected with the virus suffer from encephalitis, inflammation of the brain, which can cause seizures and permanent brain damage. The mumps virus usually causes swelling in the salivary, or parotid glands, just below the ears, giving the appearance of chipmunk cheeks. Before the development of the mumps vaccination, mumps was the most common cause of meningitis, inflammation of the lining of the brain and spinal cord, and acquired deafness in the U.S. In men, mumps can affect the testicles, which can lead to infertility. Rubella is also known as German measles. In children, rubella infection causes a mild rash on the face, swelling of glands behind the ears, and in some cases swelling of the small joints and a low-grade fever. Most children quickly recover from rubella with no lasting effects. Autism myth number 3. All Aspies and Autis are alike. Aspergers and autism are both categorized by a set of stereotypical behaviors, so I can see how it is easy to make the assumption that if I've met one Aspie, I've met all Aspies, or if I've met one Autie, I've met all Auties. But we have a saying in the autistic community, if you've met one autistic, you've met one autistic. We are as unique from one another as NTs are unique from one another. Autism myth number 4. People with autism don't care about other people. They don't understand or care about other people's emotions. Autism is associated with a lack of empathy because this part of our brain circuitry is relatively weak. This does not mean we don't understand or care about someone feeling sad. It just might take us a while to put together that you're sad. But autistics are very caring and emotional, sometimes a little too caring and emotional. We might not get small hints of sadness, But if you really show sadness and we pick up on it, we will and do care. We might not understand to the same level as an NT, and your small signs of sadness and frustration might go unnoticed, but it's not our faults. Our brains are just wired a little differently. Number 5. Autism myth number 5. Autism is just a neurological disorder. The autistic brain is definitely different than the neurotypical brain. However, this isn't the only difference. People with autism have gastrointestinal issues, food sensitivities, and allergies. It is primarily marked by a lack of social intelligence, poor social skills, and social awkwardness. That concludes this video. I strongly encourage you to read my resources and do some of your own research if you wish to learn more about this complex disorder. I hope this answers a lot of questions and maybe even raises a few more so you can get interested. Thank you for watching towards the end.